Hello and welcome to Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. This is Stefan, your host, British by birth, American by choice. The Founding Fathers crafted some remarkable documents that led to the creation of a great country founded on liberty and self-reliance. I have lived in the Euro-socialist nightmare, and I'm doing what I can to return this country to the vision that the Founding Fathers gave us. We need to strive to rebuild that shining city on the hill, for without us, the world has nowhere to turn for freedom. For the next hour, I will be presenting news, views, and guests that help keep the true spirit of America alive.
And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever, whenever you're listening to the show. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, British by birth, American by choice, and proud to be coming to you with episode 265. Tonight I'm finally going to get to the detailed story which I mentioned a couple of shows ago and then for various reasons wasn't able to come back to, about some political brutality in Wisconsin. Unbelievable story there, and just kind of a showcase of what the left can get up to when they really want to do harm, which is most of the time. But in the meanwhile, just to my normal introduction, tell you this show is coming to you this time from Central Florida. That's right, I'm not in Southwest Florida, I'm actually in Central Florida. I'm in Orlando this week, attending a trade fair, about 15 minutes drive away from where we used to live down here, so kind of old stomping grounds, but I haven't had much opportunity to get around. I'm attending a very large trade show here at the convention center in Orlando, and been very busy, although I have to say I did get an opportunity to see some friends. Yesterday evening I popped down to Kissimmee. There's a little theater there where they do a magic show on Monday nights, and called Wizards. If you're ever in the area, be sure to catch it. Great show, very cheap. All close-up stuff. It's a very small theater, seats a maximum of about 50 people, and everybody always gets a great view of what's going on. And they always have great magicians performing there. Every week a different one, pretty much. So, you always get a lot of variety. Anyway, so before going to news and views, one other thing I'd like to do, and that is to wish a happy belated birthday to Primo Mondoni's Red State Talk Radio network. This network celebrated its 5th birthday a few days ago on May 1st, so congratulations there. And for those that don't know it, RSTR is the internet's premier conservative radio channel that rebroadcasts my and many other good conservative talk shows. As far as I'm aware, RSTR actually probably has my largest audience right now, with about 2,000 listeners per month. Unfortunately, my run of being in the top 5 every month has come to an end. So to get back, I must recommend that you tell your friends about the Red State Talk Radio Network and my show. The schedule when my show is actually broadcast on Red State Talk Radio can be found at redstatetalkradio.com, and go and take a listen there and get those numbers back up. I want to say hi to my regular listeners as well, who are in the chat room. Rex is there, and Paul. Rex saying I should have plenty to talk about tonight. Yeah, sort of. I mean, but Baltimore has quietened down, and the Clintons can talk a little bit about that. So actually, in some ways, I think actually a little quieter than some of the earlier weeks, Rex. But anyway, on with the show. But anyway, hi to Paul and Rex in the chat room. If you are listening live and you're not in the chat room, get in there. Always lots of fun there. I try and participate in between chatting as well. Chatting verbally and chatting in the chat room. I tend to do that in the commercial breaks. Obviously need to concentrate on the show while I'm actually talking. So hopefully I can get to the chat room a little bit later, and also hopefully no problems with the network. This hotel has a much better connection. In actual fact, I'm on a wired connection and it's running at a blistering high speed, so it's unbelievable. So quality should be very good and no problems. And well, let's go on. And I think what I would like to do is start off with my weekly summary of short, quick news and views. And for the weekly summary tonight, I want to start off with talking about the Clinton Foundation. There's been all sorts of things that dear Hillary, or Hillier as I like to call her, has been attacked about: the Benghazi cover-up, her email scandal and everything, and then of course all this money coming into the Clinton Foundation, and whether or not it influenced her. You know, the fact that coincidentally every time she had to take a decision, her husband was given some huge amount of money as a speaking fee, or a huge amount was donated to the Clinton Foundation. And then, of course, the Clinton Foundation is used to fund all sorts of travel for the corrupt Clintons. And it's supposed to be a charitable organization. And as I mentioned, I think last week's show, about 6% of what they bring in actually goes directly to charitable donations. The other charitable donations go through other organizations that are all owned by cronies of the Clintons, and probably people who are contributing to the campaign. So, you know, I pay you some money here, you pay me some money there. It's all as untransparent as it could be, and so, you know, how it can actually even be listed as a charitable organization, who knows. However, on top of that, it turns out that the foundation failed to report millions of dollars in donations that it received from foreign governments, which basically should bring into question its charitable status, because it hasn't done the paperwork and it should be rescinded. Of course, we don't ever expect that to happen, because the IRS is so politicized that there's no way they're going to attack. There's no way they're going to punish a left-wing maniac like Hillary. But she did forget, or her foundation forgot, and of course she's at the top, so or she and Bill are at the top. They should bear all the the buck stops here kind of thing. But tax return problems, and failing to report these dollars is really it's a bad crime. Now, of course, they are going to resubmit their tax returns based on that, but it's no, I think it's disgusting. If you get caught, then you resubmit it, and there's no penalty. Unbelievable that we allow these sort of things to go on. Now, the donations they've been getting from foreign governments, They have been criticized because they seem to have an undue influence on her activities as Secretary of State. And think about the Russian uranium deal, where we gave away 20% of America's production of uranium to, in effect, to Vladimir Putin. And of course, Putin is passing on the uranium to Iran. So here we are trying to stop Iran get the bomb, and yet Hilaire signed away 20% of our production to Russia, who are going to funnel it through to Iran. So, I mean, this is just really crazy. But let's get back to the subject at hand. The subject at hand is the fact that the Clinton Foundation omitted to submit tax returns correct tax returns for about 3 years in a row, according to a Reuters report. And these are not rounding errors. These are large sums. Beginning in 2010, the Foundation reported to the IRS that it had received zero in funds from foreign and U.S. governments, a dramatic fall-off from the tens of millions of dollars in foreign government contributions reported in preceding years. So all of a sudden it's zero? Or they forgot to put that in? Millions of dollars they forgot to put in there? I don't believe it. And this is when foreign governments were providing tens of millions of dollars. So as Reuters said, this is not a rounding error. The governments, surprisingly enough, were identified on the annually updated donor list, so they were admitting to it there, but they didn't put it on the IRS forms, even though they on the Foundation's website they were publishing broad indications of how much each government had given, and cumulative, by the way, so not year by year as the IRS wants. So every year, as a tax-exempt organization, they have to file an IRS form, and that's when these errors started creeping in. But then all of a sudden, the news media started sniffing around, and then the Foundation said, oops, we made a mistake. They actually owned up to it and said, we're going to have to resubmit. Now, do you think that if you filed your taxes incorrectly and then 3 years later you sent in a form to the IRS and said, oops, we made a mistake with filing our tax forms, we forgot to put some things on here, that they're going to let you get away without penalties, without any kind of fines? I doubt it. But guess what? The Clintons will, which just shows how much politicization there is in the regime, in the administration right now. And in addition to the Clinton Foundation, there is another Clinton charity called the Clinton Health Access Initiative, which is refiling at least 2 years of returns. Now, this is beginning to sound like some kind of mafia or drug lord way of laundering money, because they've got all these charitable foundations. Maybe it is some way of laundering money, all these different charitable foundations. And these are the people who said they left the White House penniless, but last year were estimated to be valued at over $130 million. Interesting. Okay, folks. Well, that's the first part of the weekly summary. I see that the clock is ticking quickly, and I want to move on to other subjects, but before I do, it's time for the commercial break. So stick with me, I'll be right back.
You can lose 10, 20, 30 pounds or more with Maximum Slim's first ever rapid weight loss guarantee. Today, you get Maximum Slim, an advanced fat and carb blocker, absolutely risk-free. The all-natural ingredients in Maximum Slim are a powerful weight loss combination. The Maximum Slim formula turns your body into a fat-burning furnace that supercharges your weight loss. Advanced fat and carb blocker stops the breakdown of sugar so your body doesn't store it as fat. Today, you'll get both of these products absolutely risk-free with no obligation. Only pay shipping. There are no expensive meal plans or exhausting DVDs. Just take Maximum Slim twice a day. It's fast, simple, and now it's guaranteed. Look, you can start losing weight today or not. Go back to your high school days and wear your favorite jeans again. Guaranteed. Call now and get both weight loss formulas free. Call 800-451-0228. 800-451-0228. That's 800-451-0228.
Doc, you gotta give it to me straight.
All right.
'Cause I'm dying here. I mean, take a look at this letter from the IRS.
Oh, my.
This is killing me, Doc. I tell you, it's killing me.
Cheer up, my friend.
Huh?
The tax doctor is here. My diagnosis tells me that you're going to be just fine.
Really?
The tax doctor will not rest until we find you the best possible tax settlement.
Really, Doc?
Guaranteed.
If the IRS claims you owe them $10,000 or more in business or personal back taxes, call a tax doctor right now. We could save you up to 75% if you qualify. Guaranteed or you pay nothing. Call right now for free details.
800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. That's 800-917-8546.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us.
And thank you for sticking with me through that break. Before we go into the next topic, just wanted to say hi to Dave, who has joined us in the chat room. He's listening shows via his smartphone. Spreaker has a nice app for your smartphones, and you can listen along, participate in the chat room, so you don't have to have a computer to do this. And on top of that, also want to remind folks, in addition to Red State Talk Radio, which I mentioned at the beginning of the show, you can also hear the show on TuneIn, Stitcher still, I believe, YouTube, and also the 405media.com. That's the left coast out there. Another network similar to Red State Talk Radio, but they more of a podcast collector. But you can also get the shows up there. So plenty of places to get the show. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, but spread the message. And well, let's go on, and time for our for my next topic in the weekly summary. So the next one, I wanted to talk about left-wing hypocrisy again. This time not over here in the US, but as I've said many times, we can often look to what's going on in the UK and Europe to kind of find out what we can expect to see over here. And in Britain, the equivalent of the Democrats is called the Labour Party. Now, the Labour Party in Britain is probably a little bit more left even than our Democrats, because the Conservatives there, who are kind of the Republicans, are probably, we would call them blue dog Democrats. That's where they sit in the spectrum. There are other parties now coming up that are more to the right, and then of course they're immediately painted as right-wing fascist type parties, but that's not true. The biggest one is actually the UK Independence Party, UKIP, that's led by Nigel Farage. And Nigel Farage had a comment on something that happened in Britain recently, and he said there has got no place in modern civilized Britain. And what it was, there was a group of senior politicians from the Labour Party, so think, senior Democrat politicians, attending a meeting, a political rally, where men and women were seated separately. Yes, a segregated meeting. Now, can you imagine that happening here in the US? Actually, I can. Dearbornistan wouldn't surprise me at all. That's what it was in the UK. It was a heavily Muslim area, and at this meeting, everybody was sitting separated. Now, of course, the UKIP party leader, Nigel Farage, said that this event was rejecting a century and more of advancement for women's rights. He really slammed into these politicians for attending that. He tried to get comments from them, and basically there were four there: Tom Watson, not the golfer, Liam Byrne, Jack Dromey, and Khalid Mahmood, as well as a European Parliament politician, Sion Simon, all Labour Party members. And it was actually a picture that one of those attendees sent that brought up this whole issue. And Nigel Farage, when he was interviewed about it, he said, yes, there was this meeting took place 2 nights ago. There were 4 Labour politicians, including one very senior one, and he was actually the former chief secretary in Britain. That's a pretty high role in the government, in the party. Of course, Labour was in power until not too long ago, and then the Conservatives came back in. But here, the meeting, they had the men on one side of the room, the women on the other. And he said, Nigel said, I believe that doesn't have place in a modern civilized Britain, and unless we are prepared to stand up for who we are, then we will be bullied by some of those extreme elements. And I agree with Nigel Farage. We have to be on our guard. Yes, they have their religion, they have their customs, but they shouldn't force, if they want to come to this country, if they want to go to Britain, they should be prepared to accept the customs of that country. And our country, we have fought for many years for equality of women and no segregation, and the same in Britain. So, and all the time we hear about the war on women that the Republicans supposedly do. But if they had a segregated meeting like this and the Democrats were attending, couldn't we make hay of that? We could. But the lamestream media would never do that. So that's, that's, again, it's that left-wing hypocrisy that makes me so annoyed. I can understand if you've got principles and you stand up for them. But these aren't principles. On the one hand, they say, women have to be equal, and the Republicans are waging a war on women, and yet it's their own side that's doing that, and they won't own up to it. And on top of that, what's even worse, the 3 non-Asian politicians, when approached by Reuters and asked a question on this, basically refused to give an answer, did not answer. The one Asian that was at the meeting admitted that he admitted to the newspaper that he had attended this meeting, but he said, and? So it shows, it shows kind of total disregard for our morals, for our approach to life. And the newspaper pressed him. in England. He said, and actually asked him, was it appropriate to address a segregated audience? He got flustered and said, well, I didn't organize it, you'll have to speak to the organizers. Yeah, well, if you see that it's segregated, you should stand up and say something about it. But they are not going to do that. Okay, folks. We've got time for another topic here, and this is more religious bullying, this time in the States. This is actually here in Florida, in Lakeland, Florida, not too far away from here. And this was a high school student who's actually also enrolled in college and was given very poor marks. Well, very poor. She was given 4 straight zeros when she was answering some questions, some discussions in his class. So for example, the professor, his name is Russum, Professor Russum, set the following essay question: why did Christianity and its male gods seek to silence these women? And this was talking about some nuns. And so in other essays where the girl that was being bullied, she refused to concede that Christianity was false, violent, or oppressive to women, that Martin Luther's motivations for the Reformation were totally secular, and that Michelangelo's sculptures and paintings communicated that same-sex relationship is not a sin. She refused to accept those premises, basically refuted them in her essays, and the professor gave her 4 straight zeros. Well, I thought college was supposed to be a place that you have a discourse, that you're supposed to learn by looking at different viewpoints. But this Professor Russum was obviously using the classroom to reflect his own personal biases. Apparently, his Facebook picture also includes pictures of Fidel Castro, Jesus Christ making obscene gesture, and things like that. This particular girl was not the only one to be attacked in this way on the Rate My Professor website. It turns out that other students made similar comments. His college email signature includes a quote from a Marxist who praises Lenin, Stalin, the Khmer Rouge, and Adolf Hitler. Well, and as Dave said, nice marketplace of ideas. Nice if you want to market those ideas, that's fine. But this professor was doing more than that. He was forcing his ideas upon these children. So the Liberty Council in Florida has jumped in on this and has demanded a full and independent review. He probably has tenure, so they won't be able to fire him, but they want an independent review of the girls' essays and then have them regraded from the zeros. They also want this professor to give a written apology and assurances that future courses will not subject the students to such blatant pressure, political pressure, biased pressure on them. So whether or not that will happen, we'll see. We've got one more topic I think that I'd like to handle. Is it 1 or 2? No, I've got 2 more topics I'd like to handle in the weekly summary. But before we do that, I see it's almost time for the break at the bottom of the hour. Wow, time is going very quickly today. So we'll quickly go to commercial break and then maybe have a little bit of music after that, and then we'll finish off the weekly summary and we'll get to the main topic of the day. So stick with me, folks. Here comes the break, and I will be back.
Patriot come lately. British by birth, American by choice. Just like the Founding Fathers. The voice of the conservative resistance.
Every day, millions of Americans grow more concerned about the future of our great nation. The truth is, over the last century, a small but powerful collectivist movement known as progressivism has debased our politics, our culture, and our currency. We're just a small step from falling into 1,000 years of darkness, as Ronald Reagan warned. Friend, this is Pat Boone with an important free offer on a hot new book called The Great Withdrawal by Craig Smith and Lowell Ponte. This new book explains how we, the people, can end this fatal detour into big government and get back on the path of faith and freedom charted by our founders. Call now for a free copy of the hot new book called The Great Withdrawal.
Call now for your free copy. 800-978-3901. 800-978-3901. 800-978-3901. That's 800-978-3901.
Owe $10,000 or more to the IRS that you can't pay? Call now for immediate help. At the Tax Relief Line, we help people just like you. If you take on the IRS alone, you could be facing levies, liens, even wage garnishments, personal or business tax issues. If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS, call now and see if you can pay less. They can freeze your bank accounts, even garnish your wages. Call the Tax Relief Line now for immediate help. Our expert team of tax professionals will negotiate your tax problem and deal with the IRS for you. If the IRS is threatening you with levies, wage garnishments, or seizing your assets, call now and see if you can pay the IRS less.
888-789-5043. 888-789-5043. 888-789-5043. 888-789-5043.
This is Patriot Come Lately Talk Radio, keeping the spirit of America alive, a proud member of the Red State Talk Radio Network.
And this is Stefan, your Patriot Come Lately, British by birth, American by choice. Welcome back to the second half of the show. Before we go back to the news and views of the week, just like to remind you, if you are not in the chat room, and Rex and Dave and Paul are in there tonight, and thanks for coming, guys. If you're not in the chat room but would like to comment or you have questions about the show, feel free to email me. My email address is stefan@patriotcomelately.us, or you can go to my website, www.patriotcomelately.us, and that will allow you to click on the contact button there and enter a message, which will also be sent to me. Love to hear from my listeners. Try to reply to you directly, and in most cases, unless you tell me not to, we'll also handle your question in the show at a future date. So, do get in touch with me. Number 2, just another reminder, please tell your friends about the show, the different ways they can listen. Obviously, at this location where you're listening now, you can go to archives.patriotcomelately.us to listen to recordings of the show. You can Red State Talk Radio broadcast. You can go to the 405media.com, and also things like TuneIn, Stitcher, and YouTube have the show. So plenty of places to get these messages, and hopefully share these messages with others, because that's really what the show is about. It's about education. Letting you know what's going on so that we can spread the message and hopefully convince enough people that America cannot afford another regressive president coming up in 2016, and we need to get rid of even more of some of these really insane, regressive politicians in Washington. And that's both on the left side of the aisle and the right side of the aisle as well. But before we go on with the news, I promised you some music, and here's sort of something that we all dream about, but somehow I don't think will happen. And we have to have a counterpoint, but still, it's a nice dream to have.
Imagine there's no liberals. It's easy if you try. No traitors among us who push common sense aside. Imagine all the liberals that they are gone away. Ooh. Imagine there's no Hillary. It isn't hard to do. No Nancy Pelosi. No Cindy Sheehan too. Imagine all the liberals have moved to Canada. Ooh. You may say I'm a hater for not liking liberal scum. They live in La La Land with their heads stuck up their bum. Imagine no mainstream media. I wonder if you can. No New York Times or CBS. No need for CNN. Imagine all the liberals sailing out to sea. Ooh. You may say I'm a hater for not liking liberal scum. Because they live in La La Land with their heads stuck up their bum.
Yes, folks, and that was Imagine There's No Liberals. I think it's kind of ironic that this artist used the regressive anthem by John Lennon, Imagine, but with these words. And of course, apparently John Lennon was actually a closet Republican. So in spite of writing that song that the left have kind of taken as their own, but he was actually a little bit of a closet Republican. Amazing. Anyway, let's get back to the news. Next topic in the news is actually some good news. A number of states have started signing into law, and I think there may be more, but I've got Tennessee here, and then Montana and Arizona. So that's at least 3, but I think there may be another couple that have signed laws that actually block federal gun control. And this is basically in kind of because of our dear friend King Barry threatening to uses executive action to create more gun control. And so they've signed laws that basically outlaw state and local authorities from supporting any federal law. In other words, if there's a federal law which goes against their constitution, then their constitution preempts the federal law and their people can't enforce it. Now, that means if there's a federal marshal were to come and do anything, confiscate your gun or whatever, they can't stop that, but they cannot support that action. They can't back up the federal marshal. And if they themselves notice anything, let's say some certain kind of gun was made illegal and you were stopped and the police officer saw in your car that you had that kind of gun, if he was state or local police, not a federal marshal, then there's nothing he could do about it because he is not allowed to take action on it. So that's good news, because the fact that now we've got 2, 3, 4, 5 odd states have done it, as soon as somebody basically gets away with something that the federal government doesn't like, it's going to go to court, and this really will come out as something where the Supreme Court almost has to rule on the side of the states, or they throw away the Constitution and basically throw away the 10th Amendment. Not impossible. Supreme Court could do it, but it'd be interesting. I think, and I hope what would happen is that, yes, they would say, sorry, it is the state's right, and out goes the federal law. So anyway, we will see. And interestingly enough, in Tennessee, the Tennessee Constitution actually says that the citizens of this state have a right to keep and bear arms for their common defense, but the legislature shall have power by law to regulate the wearing of arms with a view to prevent crime. So they're kind of pushing there a little bit the right to bear arms. They're saying you're allowed to keep arms, but you may not be able to bear them at all times. Very interesting, that particular note. However, note also that they don't say anything about a militia. They just say for the common defense. So the state constitution is fairly broad in that respect. And also it says it's not the federal requirements, but any state requirements about the wearing of guns that can be legislated. So, and I think the other states have similar constitutions. It's going to be interesting if that ever does come into court, if the regime thinks if it's stupid enough to think that it can really take someone to court on that. But we will wait and see. Okay, I've got one more thing that I'd like to quickly run through, so let's do that. And this final topic is our dear friend Treasury Secretary Jack Lew talking about the Iran peace deal. Now, we haven't heard anything about it for a while. It was originally a framework. It still had to be sorted out. And, of course, King Barry is leaning on John Kerry to try and get something out before whatever the end date is now. But Jack Lew was commenting on the fact that when Iran signs the final document, we are going to give $50 billion in support as part of the sanctions relief. $50 billion signing bonus, folks. So Jack Lew was asked a question, and he acknowledged that the large sums of money that are going to be given as that signing bonus or sanctions relief, he commented that most of it won't directly fund terrorist operations in the Middle East. Most of it. In other words, he admits that we're giving $50 million $50 billion to Iran, and a certain amount of that will fund terrorist organizations. Folks, let's take this regime to court. They are traitors. They are giving money to the enemy because they know that Iran's going to do it. How can they even dare to give any money to Iran knowing that it's going to go to fund terrorist operations? To me, that's treason. Anybody who signs off on that, and the president would have to sign off on it, is nuts. He's just totally, absolutely nuts. I can't, and we're nuts, and we're stupid to allow this without taking any action. Okay, folks, final commercial break, and then political brutality in Wisconsin. So if you'll just stick with me, I will be right back after these messages.
Reporting from the eye of the storm. This is the worst weather we've seen in quite some time, folks. And I don't see any end in sight. People have been calling in from across the state complaining their basements are flooding. One guy said he now has an indoor swimming pool in his basement. I told him he needs the waterproofing innovations from Basement Systems. If you want a dry basement or crawl space that will weather any kind of storm, you need the patented solutions from Basement Systems. You've seen them on home makeover shows throughout the country. With a lifetime warranty, every solution is custom designed for your basement. Call now for a free estimate, and you'll never have to worry about storms like these again. I'm predicting this storm front is heading your way, so call Basement Systems and relax.
Call 800-205-8665 for your free in-home inspection, or visit basementradiooffer.com. That's 800-205-8665, or visit basementradiooffer.com.
I've owned my company for 14 years now, and I can tell you that payroll is a 4-letter word. I hate doing it. It eats up hours I don't have, and it costs me money I could be saving. But my accountant's too expensive, and I'm not sure who to call. But I know I need help.
We're Paychex, and we take all the hassles out of small business payroll. We save you time and money. It's easy. Call, fax, or give us your payroll information securely online, and we take care of the rest. We calculate the correct taxes, manage payments and direct deposits. We even send out your checks. Payroll doesn't need to be a 4-letter word anymore. We're so sure that we can save you time and money that we'll give you a month's payroll free. Just for calling 877-750-5371. Get 1 month's payroll for free. Call Paychex right now. 877-750-5371. That's 877-750-5371.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us.
Okay, folks, we're into the last segment of the show, and I now want to get to the main topic, the political brutality that took place in Wisconsin, and as one commentator put it, Wisconsin's shame, and I think that's very true. Let me set the scene. Let's just suppose that you're a district attorney and you suspect that one of the politicians has been doing some things that might be bending the rules a little bit with respect to money, with respect to working together with political action groups and things like that. So let's say essentially administrative crime. I mean, it could still be a crime, still needs to be investigated, right? But it's administrative. I mean, it's not drug dealers, it's not gang members. So if you're going to investigate that and you suspect that somebody who works for that politician has worked in their campaign, perhaps worked on some legislation or something that the politician in question's involved with, You'd think what you would do, you'd send the local police round. They might come knock on the door at some reasonable time in the day and say, I have a warrant here, we need to come and look for papers, etc. That would be the thing you would do. What happened in Wisconsin? Well, one of the things that happened, Cindy Archer, she was the lead architect of the Wisconsin Budget Repair Bill. This was something that Scott Walker pushed through, and basically it fettered the unions, made them took away a lot of their power. She was jolted awake by yelling and loud pounding at the door and her dog's frantic barking. This is the middle of the night. She looked outside to see up to a dozen police officers yelling to open the door. They were carrying a battering ram. This is unbelievable. A battering ram for an administrative crime. She wasn't dressed, but she started to run towards the door, her body in full view of the police. Some yelled at her to grab some clothes. Others yelled for her to open the door. She was so afraid, she said, I didn't know what to do. She grabbed some clothes, opened the door, and dressed right in front of the police. The dogs were still frantic. So her dogs were barking. She begged them not to shoot her because these guys were so hyped up. She got the dogs safely out of the house as multiple armed agents rushed inside. Some even barged into the bathroom where her partner was in the shower. The officer or agent in charge demanded that Cindy sit on the couch, but she wanted to get up and get a cup of coffee. I told them it was my house and I could do what I wanted. Wrong thing to say. This made the agent in charge furious. He towered over me with his finger in my face and yelled like a drill sergeant that I either do it his way or he would handcuff me. Folks, they were investigating an administrative crime. This person wasn't even charged with anything. They wouldn't let her speak to a lawyer. She saw a reporter outside. Obviously someone had tipped the reporter off, but she wasn't allowed to speak to anybody. The neighbors came outside, and then the police were searching her house, leaving it a mess, strewing her dead mother's belongings across the basement in a most disrespectful way. And then they left, carrying only with them a cell phone and a laptop. Folks, this is just pure intimidation. There are more of these stories. There are others. Anne, not her real name, had the same situation occur. Middle of the night, knocking on the door. Folks, there is, even if these people had done anything wrong in conjunction with that politician, of course we're talking about Scott Walker, you shouldn't be doing this sort of thing. This is just pure political intimidation. And in one of these situations, the police actually apologized because they realized that they were doing wrong, but they were just following orders. And Rex said, police are out of control. Yeah, there's a lot of thugs in the police. There's a lot of very good policemen, but there's also a lot of bad politicians telling the police what to do, and very, very, just using political force, political intimidation against their enemies. Folks, this is turning us into a banana republic, and it has to stop. We have to stand up and refuse to allow it. Well, folks, it's that time again. Time to say TTFN. Please join me next week. Tell your friends. It's been fun. Come back.
Thank you for listening to the show. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's topics. Whether you listened live, to a recording, or to a rebroadcast, I appreciate the time you share with me. We need to spread the message of liberty far and wide, so please tell your friends and family about the show. Thank you for helping to keep the beacon of hope burning. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, signing off. God bless America, and remember, L3, long live liberty.